All right, everybody. Good morning. It is officially 10 o'clock here on Tuesday, June 30th. We are super excited to be presenting another Alibi Security Live webinar session. Specifically, we're really excited about having one of our third-party partners, the team from SEAGATE, to talk about SkyHawk surveillance drives. This is a really good topic because it kind of dovetails on the back of a session we did last week, which was on recorder and storage fundamentals. And we talked a lot about recorder specs, designing really smart recorder and storage solutions, and covered a lot about codecs and bandwidth and bit rates and all those things that go into really delivering a reliable and high performing security solution for your customers. So this is a great segue into our conversation today as we talk about SEAGATE hard drives. You know, the conversation we're going to have with Clayton today from SEAGATE is going to help you guys understand the features and functionalities of these highly intelligent hard drives. And there's probably some information you're going to learn today that's going to help you do your job better and make your job easier, because some of the features that they offer allow you to provide intelligence that you may not be aware of. So thank you, Clayton, for being here today. We're super excited to have you on the webinar.
Thanks, Chris. I appreciate it. Looks like I'm having here we go. So yeah, we're going to talk about the SkyHawk surveillance drives here from SEAGATE. And like Chris mentioned, my name's Clayton Bailey, and I'm a sales rep with SEAGATE on the surveillance market. So all I do is serve our surveillance partners. And so this is live and breathe, you know, data for surveillance, whether it's analytical or just straight video. You know, we really want to help our customers to, you know, achieve their goals, set up the correct systems that are going to last, and help serve their customers.
Perfect. Well, before we hand it off to Clayton full time here for this session, if you guys have questions during the session, please use the Q&A feature that's down at the bottom of your Zoom window. Okay, we're going to be aggregating, collecting all of the Q&A in that window, and we'll address those questions at the end. If for any reason we don't get to some of your questions at the end of the session, we'll follow up with you guys directly to make sure you get those answers to those questions. And then also, if you have any other video security or access control topics that you want us to cover in upcoming webinars, we'd love to hear that, right? We're always looking for the information, the sessions, the educational opportunities to provide you guys with more knowledge for your business. You know, our goal is to bring you relevant topics that help you do your job better or do your job more efficiently. So use the chat feature to let us know about those. That way we don't get them mixed up with the Q&A. But along the way, hit us up with any questions. And again, we'll cover those at the end. Typically, as we go through these sessions, we'll hit on a lot of your questions along the way. So without further ado, I'm going to hand it over to Clayton. We're going to talk all about SEAGATE.
All right. So we're going to really dive into the surveillance stuff now. So quick little agenda. I'm going to cover, you know, a little bit about SEAGATE as a company. If you're new to the space, new to IT, if you haven't heard of SEAGATE, I'm just going to give you a quick little background about us. Talk about some of our new technology coming down the pipeline. You know, this stuff isn't quite available just yet, but it's stuff that's going to be put into surveillance technology in the future. So everything we do, we always keep a mindset of how can we, you know, use this in different markets to benefit our customers or give them more access to, you know, their devices. Then we'll, of course, you know, dive more detail about the SkyHawk surveillance drives themselves. Talk about our health monitoring features that we've implemented with a lot of our surveillance partners, and then just give you a couple little drive handling tips that, you know, some people might not think about, and it really helps keep these drives lasting longer even before you go to put them in the systems. So we'll just move on into the presentation. So, you know, a little bit about SEAGATE. We've been around for, you know, almost 40 years now. just concentrating on pure, digital storage. So we spend about $1 billion annually in R&D. And so that's just, developing new products, new technologies, increasing our reliability, increasing our capabilities. And we really like to pass these benefits on to our customers. So that's really what's helped us stay alive this long of a time. A lot of other hard drive manufacturers have gone by the wayside. There's really only 3 of us left. So that, it's pretty, good for that. Gartner's rated us top 25 for supply chain vendors. So we really like to work closely with our partners, get them what they need on time, forecast, make sure we get all our products shipped, wherever it's coming from, whether it's Asia. We do a little bit of manufacturing in Mexico. We want to make sure that we serve our customers as well as we can. And then specifically for surveillance, we actually invented the surveillance class hard drive. It's about 10 years ago now. So there's been a couple reiterations of it since then. Right now we're on what we call the SkyHawk. So that's what you guys will see in the Alibi recorders or other places in the market. But we were the first ones to come out with a dedicated surveillance hard drive. And as a company, over these, past 40 years or so, we've shipped 2.4 billion hard drives. So that's a ton of storage. Our next biggest competitor, you might have heard of them. They like to use the colored hard drives. We've shipped 17% more than even them. So, not bad numbers, and all with a less than a 1.5% warranty claim rate, which is usually a little bit higher than actual failure rate because you get, people, returning drives that might not necessarily be bad, or, we factor all that stuff in. So we just want to give you the biggest number, and it's still pretty small. So that's a little bit about Seagate. We'll continue talking about, what we're doing for surveillance in general. We do have the 10 years behind us, which helps us to continually innovate with new features, better class products, stuff that lasts longer. We do build a 5-year lifespan into each drive. So no matter what the warranty is, whether it's 2 years, 3 years, 5 years, we build each of our drives with the mindset of this should last for 5 years at least. So that's kind of the way we go into it. Helps keep our reliability numbers up. A lot of times people will get rid of their hard drive, quicker than it fails just because they need more space. They want something a little bit faster. Lots of reasons in there. Another thing we like to do with our surveillance drives is all about scalability. So no matter what your configuration is to start, it might be a 4-channel, 1-bay, 1 hard drive system that you might want to expand later on to, 2 drives and 8 cameras, 16, whatever that may be. We want to make it so your upgrades are seamless. So all of our drives from 3 terabytes and above will come with what we call rotational vibration sensors. And what that does is it helps sync all these drives that are in the same unit together, so you don't get any over vibration that can hinder the performance of the drives. Another big thing we're going to talk about is our drive health management. So we've implemented that. Alibi definitely gets to take advantage of it. So we'll go into a little bit deeper in that. And then our last feature is our data recovery rescue service. It's an optional service, but we can do it on any drive made by Seagate. In fact, we can actually add this plan to any drive, even if it's not made by us. And what it is, it's just basically like a protection plan. We can cover 2 years, 3 years, 5 years, however long you want to do. But if that drive were to fail for any reason, whether it's a hard drive just mechanical failure, a natural disaster, hurricane comes through, floods your building, and it fries your system, electrical problems, fires, even if it's a security system. So if a robber comes in and smashes your NVR, you send us that drive back. We'll put it in a full clean labs room, pull that data off of it, put it on a new drive, and send it back to you. So that's part of our new services that we offer. All right, and then wanted to kind of jump into some of the new stuff we're working on, and this first one is what we call HAMR, so HAMR. So if you've heard of CMR, PMR, SMR, it's a lot of different ways that we record data on the drives themselves. And it allows us to get, more and more data on a single drive without increasing the physical, footprint of that drive. So we can still fall in the same, physical dimension specs that we need to fit in these systems. So right now we're running CMR mostly, especially when we talk about the surveillance drives. SMR, you might have heard in the news lately, there's, one of our competitors had a little bit of problems with it. It's not that great for multi-base systems. We definitely understand that as well and don't put that into those kinds of products. So we try to keep everything, working as well as we can. But Hammer, which is a really cool technology, what we're doing is, and I apologize, this was supposed to be a little embedded video, it's not working, but you can see right here on the head of the drive, we're gonna put little lasers on there. And so these lasers heat up the platter and allow us to squeeze those bits even closer together. So right now, we're running about, I'd say about 0.5 terabyte per square inch on our platters, and this technology is going to get us up in, above the 1.2 all the way to 4 terabits, per square inch. So this is going to allow us to break, over the 20 terabyte per drive capacity limits, and just beyond. So on our roadmaps, we're already looking at 20, 24, 26, 30 terabyte drives in the upcoming future. It's not too far away. So this technology, we've proven it already. We've got 10,000 or so drives out in the field already, with some big OEMs like IBM, Dell, HP, Lenovo. They've been testing these drives for a few years and really seeing the benefit of it. So we're continually pushing into it and just keeping drives as big as our customers need it. And then our next cool technology we're doing, we call Mach 2. So this is you kind of think of it as 2 drives in one. So right now it's based off of our 14 terabyte platform. And when you plug it in a system, the system actually reads it as 2 separate drives. So you can, in essence, double your performance with the inputs and outputs, as is based or compared to a single drive. So, we've seen a lot of good, I got a lot of good use cases for surveillance and video streaming, also in the analytics side of the business. So, when you don't want to sacrifice performance of your rights to write all those video files at the same time as you want all the benefits of being able to pull that data and analyze it and get the benefits you're trying to get out of it. Whether it's people counting, license plate recognition, facial recognition, tracking people in stores, any of those kinds of things. So we want to be able to, give our customers the full availability of their data. So a couple little things we're working on. You might see those, start coming out in the near future, but we're continuously investing in new technologies and new ways to better the storage market. So with that, we'll jump into the SkyHawk, talk a little bit about what makes us different, what we do differently based on, your typical desktop class hard drive that you would see in, your workstation, your desktop, your laptop, something like that at home, even versus, NAS hard drives, server hard drives, enterprise. There's really a drive for every use case these days. It's no more one drive fits all. So whatever your use case is, it's best to get a drive that's built for that application. So, one thing I like to show is this graph right here is talking about new data generated by new surveillance cameras. So we understand people out there, they've got a lot of retention times, they're constantly storing data, but they're also constantly adding new cameras, wanting to cover new blind spots, wanting to cover buildings that weren't previously covered. They want cameras in, places where they can track people and get trends and really start to analyze the data and put together things to, to make business decisions off of. So we really want to support this industry to continually develop products for you guys. So we definitely see the value in it. So when we look at the SkyHawk drives, you'll see we have SkyHawk and SkyHawk AI. The biggest way to tell the difference between them is first off, capacity. So you'll see the SkyHawk drives, we're doing right now in the US from 1 terabyte to 6 terabyte. And then SkyHawk AI will be 8 terabyte and above. So best way to keep those two different. And then we'll talk about, what's about each one individually. So when we look at SkyHawk, it's built for surveillance. And what we do differently is you'll see this image perfect firmware. And so what that does is it controls how the drive reacts to the data coming into it. So you see right above that 90% write, 10% read. And this is, when you're recording surveillance, it's just a constant influx of video files. So we want to put a lot of performance into those write cycles so that you're not getting any pixelations, you're not getting drop frames, you're not losing, video altogether. So we want to make sure to capture everything that the cameras see. And the image perfect firmware is really what drives that. If you were to look at our Barracuda line, for instance, which is a pretty popular line for desktops and laptops, that's going to be a more balanced read and write, more of a 50-50, because you're constantly writing, but you're constantly pulling up things to recall. So those ones you want a little more balanced. For surveillance, you don't really pull up a video unless you're trying to analyze it, unless the alarm trigger or something like that, something you need to look at. So we want to really concentrate on those write cycles. Next thing you'll see is what we call the workload rating, and it's a newer spec that you'll see in a lot of hard drives, and it's basically what the drive is capable of doing and still falling under our specifications. So with our SkyHawk drives, it's 180 terabytes per year. So you can think of, I can write, no matter what the capacity of the drive is, whether it's a 1 terabyte, 4 terabyte, 16 terabyte, we can write 180 terabytes per year to that one drive for each of the 3 years with its warranty and still not have any problems with it. So definitely they're capable of taking a beating, capable of running 24/7, and they're built with the components to support that. So one thing that we do differently than our competitors is our surveillance drives are built directly from our enterprise class drives, which is top of the top. So we take that same technology and we change the firmware on it, and we call it a SkyHawk drive. So you're getting, some of our best components when you do buy these SkyHawk drives. I did mention earlier about the rotational vibration sensors. So 3 terabytes and above do include that. We don't see, many 1s and 2 terabytes going into 8-bay, 16-bay systems. So it's usually not too big of an issue. Up to 4 bays without the RV sensors is usually completely fine. So, no worries there if you are going to be using those smaller capacities. Our SkyHawk Health Management, which we'll talk a little bit about after this. I'd like to cover this tarnish resistant compound. So this is something we also do different that our competitors don't do. And inside the drives where you see the electrical connections, we put a compound on there to protect it from any kind of corrosion or rust or things of that nature. So when people are using these drives, in not the most environmentally friendly places, such as, manufacturing warehouses, down here in Texas, it gets, really hot. So there's a lot of, storage places that aren't, cooled properly, lots of humidity. This really helps protect against those kinds of conditions. And then of course our rescue data recovery services are completely compatible for these drives as well. So that's something you can always add on after the fact. When we talk about the AI drives, basically all the same things I just mentioned, but just take it a little bit further. So when we look at that workload rating, you'll see a jump up to 550 terabytes per year. So almost 3 times what that is. When we look at our competitor, they're running 330 for their high-end, what they call their NVR drives. So we're still higher than the competitors as far as what we can handle. All these drives, of course, have the RV sensors in them since it's 8 terabytes and above. We do increase the MTBF, so it goes from 1 million to 1.5. So we do a little bit more testing behind it. Each one of our drives are tested 100% before they go out in the field. So we test every single drive in a lab before we box it and ship it. So they're guaranteed to work unless something happens within shipping that can cause damage to a drive or shorten its lifespan. So we really stand behind our products. We want to make sure they're all working when we get them out to our customers. And then wanted to kind of dive into that, the SkyHawk, the image perfect firmware, because this is really what we call, the secret sauce of a surveillance hard drive. So when we do this, we optimize it for 24/7 use. Desktop class drives, they're only 8x5, only meant to be on during work hours. These ones, 24/7, hardcore recording. This really, helps protect against, all the frame losses, any kind of pixelations, like I mentioned. We also build in error correction codes. So when you are using these in RAID environments and you have, there's some warnings that can pop up that, might not necessarily be as important for a surveillance device as it would be for a file serving device. So we have ways to omit those errors and keep your system up and running without going into a degraded mode. So we want to keep, these systems for whatever kind of application they're using, we try to make it, work as seamlessly as possible for it. And just kind of as a visualization, what does that mean? You're putting all these video files on a drive, sequentially, what does that mean? So to kind of show you on the left here, we've got, 4 cameras set up. You've got 4 streams coming in, and we're using the buffer, the cache of the hard drive, to stop, grab those streams, and then lay them down sequentially. So the drive head has less times of coming up, searching for empty spots on the disk. It just continuously writes. So you can see it'll complete the first camera, second camera, third camera, fourth camera, all in a row. And this really, takes away from the lag that you can sometimes see in a normal desktop class drive, or even drives from competition. So this helps us capture everything, keeps the performance of the drive at peak, and just ensures that we're recording what you need recorded. And then this is kind of a visualization about the RV sensors. So we have additional sensors in there that work in conjunction with it as well. But these sensors, what they do is they align and they help keep the head on track. So when we're talking about, data tracks on a drive are, as wide as atoms, not even millimeters or nanometers, we're talking atoms. So any kind of vibration that can throw that head off track, is really going to hurt the performance of that drive, because it's going to have to pick itself back up, search for the spot where it fell off, and then restart writing, and then figure out if everything it wrote was correct. And if not, it's got to rewrite everything again. So any of these kinds of sensors that can, mitigate that performance loss of, side-by-side shakes or vibrations from alternate sources in the room, we really try to keep that to a minimum and keep these drives just humming along. So one more thing, we do have our surveillance calculator, which I know there's tons of these out there. I know Alibi's got their own as well. We do it just for, give you guys an extra option. There's always good ways to double check your work if you're trying to design a system. Check multiple sources. Don't rely on just one. You might find your couple favorites. It might not be ours. It might be. That's completely up to you guys. But it just gives you a good way of kind of mapping out your system. If you want to talk about how many cameras I've got, what kind of resolution we're talking about, what kind of compression, all that. You can kind of get an idea of how much storage you would need for that system.
Yeah, Clayton, one of the things we covered last week was our Alibi storage calculator as well. We offer a similar thing, and it's always good, to your point, to use a couple different sources to double check your work and make sure that the solution you're bidding is actually going to deliver on the specs that you want it to.
Exactly right. You definitely want to. You never want to undersell yourself. don't make that mistake of promising something and then having to, use your own money to support it on the back end. You want to be upfront and make sure you're covered. So, just like Chris said, it's great to have different sources. It never hurts to check a couple different guys. All right, and so now we're going to talk about the health management feature, which is, something it's, I wouldn't say relatively new. We started rolling it out maybe about a year and a half ago, 2 years, and we've worked hand in hand with a lot of the VMS companies and other market players to implement this. And it only works with SEAGATE SkyHawk hard drives. So if you were to put in, a purple drive in there or any of our competitors' drives, it'll show up and it'll say these features aren't accessible for you because you don't have a SkyHawk drive. So it's big. It's very reassuring. Our customers trust us to be able to deliver these kind of analytics, these kinds of health features to their customers and help keep their products up and running. So when we talk about it, there's really three main pillars within the health management. That's prevention, intervention, and recovery. So this right here, it's just a generic screen. This is what it would look like in the system. I do have some alibi screenshots coming that you'll see, but just for all purposes, you would see each drive laid out in that system, whether you have one drive in there, 4 drives, 2, 12 in this one, it doesn't matter. All the drives in that system will show up. The green little bars indicate good health, and then if something were to go wrong, that's what we're going to talk about next. So here we've got the first pillar, prevention. So this dashboard is showing drive 1's detecting higher than normal temperatures, and it could be from a number of different reasons. There's hundreds of reasons why it could be doing that, but what we like to do is maybe give you what could be affecting it, give you something to look at to try to fix it if it's something environmental, external to the hard drive itself. So this one's saying abnormally high temperature. Check your ventilation ports on the NVR. Make sure the airflow is still good. You might try lowering the ambient temperature in the room, and then if the problem persists, definitely give us a call. Give Alibi your call. We can all work together to help you resolve the issue. But this will at least give you an idea of something is going on before it actually goes wrong, so you can fix the problem before a drive fails, and then you're left in a degraded state. You're trying to rebuild, or you're trying to find that lost data, anything like that. So one way to keep things up and running. And so this right here, this is actually out of the Alibi OS, so the GUI. So if you were to have a problem and you click on an individual drive, this screen will show up, and it's going to give you, I don't have it showing now, but it's going to have real-time maps and graphs. It's going to show your temperatures of that drive for a certain given time period, your vibration, your SATA uplink, and so you can monitor those all in real time. And what's nice about this is I'd like to talk about an instance we had with a customer. They were serving some fast food restaurants, and they were getting high shock readings on the hard drives, and it was kind of random but kind of not, and we really wanted to dive in to see what was happening. And so we saw the vibration curve, and we were able to line that up against their access control system and see that the security door in the back, the back room, was being opened at the same time these vibrations were occurring on the drives. So they were able to deduce to say, hey, the security door, whenever it closes, it's shaking the wall that the NVR is mounted to, and we were able to go in, help them with new rubber feet on the NVRs to really mitigate that vibration, and now they don't see the same issues. We've also seen that with elevators going by, the vibrations caused by elevators, the exact same thing. So we really want to give you tools to look into it. It might not necessarily be a security issue. It might be something else going on in the building. But these kinds of tools can help you deduce that. And then all these tools come with email alerts for your admin. So if you're controlling a system for your customers, you can reach out and say, hey, we've detected some abnormances. We'd love to come over there and help you get it fixed out before, a drive fails or a system fails and you're lost, with no data, or, we're trying to scramble to get your system back up and running. So great ways to help you and your customers really monitor their systems and make sure everything's working seamlessly together. Intervention. So this is more of a internal drive issues. So, not only those external factors that we monitor, we're also, of course, monitoring the internals of the drives, whether it's, performance, the data transfer rates, readability, writability, just overall health of the drive itself. So if you've heard of SMART, it's a feature that's built into basically every hard drive out there, and it monitors those kinds of features. But it's built into this system as well. So now we can, upload it. It'll give you a warning. Something might be going on with this drive. It's probably not something you're going to fix without either rebuilding the drive or replacing it. So just another quick way to, give you one more, oversight into the system and make sure everything's running smartly and good. And then lastly is the recovery phase, which this is what happens if a drive does fail. So if it does fail, within the system itself, you can toggle, if you have our rescue services attached to it, that plan will show up in the system as well. It'll give you the options to replace the drive, contact warranty support, initiate RMAs, all that good stuff, all from within your system. So you can monitor which drives carry the plan, which ones don't. It also helps with the rebuild process of the system. So if you're running a RAID, your traditional RAID, they can take quite a while to rebuild, especially when you start talking about the higher capacity drives like 8 terabyte, 10, 12, all the way to 16s. So, you're talking a 16 terabyte, 4 drives in a RAID 5, that could, take over a day easy to rebuild. And with our rapid RAID rebuild system, the way we pull the data off of the other available drives is a little bit different than a normal RAID. So we do it a little bit quicker than a normal RAID. So, we like to say it can be up to 3 times faster than a normal RAID rebuild. Of course, it's going to depend on, the system you've got. But it's definitely going to be quicker and, keep your system back up and running. No more degraded mode. No more worry if you're running a RAID 5, you have 1 drive fail. You definitely don't want to see a second drive fail. So we could try to get that system back up and running for you as quickly as possible. And then I wanted to throw up just the compatibility for the health management. So these are the models of the Alibi recorders that do currently support it. We'll be working to try to expand that list, in the future. But as a start, these guys are all up to date. You can start it today and get up and running. And this right here is the GUI you would see. So you can see, drive 5, 6, and 7, all SEAGATE drives. All drives are healthy, up and running. So that's when you can start clicking in and dive into the actual drives themselves. All right, and then kind of wrapping it up, talk about some drive handling tips. Drives there, we don't like to say it, being the drive guy, but we are a commodity. Everybody, needs us to work it. We're kind of second thought a lot of times, but it still doesn't take away on the importance of how you handle these drives, properly to keep them up and running. So even before you get the drives in the systems, you've got them ordered in. Say you're replacing some drives, you keep them in your van, anything like that. These are just tips, to kind of make sure you keep in mind. So definitely never stack the drives. Even if they are in the static bags, it's, the metal to metal contact, even if you try to be very careful, they can still cause the G-forces needed to mess up, the heads on the inside. We do build in, some safeties to where, when the drive is powered off correctly, it locks the head back at the 0 point, and keeps it there to keep preventing, head gouging the platters, with any kind of vibration. So we do try to, stop that as much as possible, but any kind of bangs and clanks, can hurt a drive. Next biggest killer is going to be, of course, static. Always, make sure to discharge yourself before you grab the hard drive up off the ground, or, out of your storage bin in the van, or, off the table to install it. You always want to make sure you're not charged. So just touch a doorknob, touch something metal, make sure you're not holding any of that in you. And then kind of the silent killer, especially down here in Texas where we're at, down here where Alibi's at, even up north, can see the same things, and that's condensation. So, you leave your hard drives in the van, maybe overnight, you load up your van before for the next day's job. And, it's 100 degrees out here, it can be 70 degrees at night, heat up in the day. And those changes in temperatures are what causes the condensation. So our biggest thing we tell our partners is make sure to acclimate the drive to room temperature before you go to install it. So when you get to a job site, make sure you've carried the new hard drives in if you're replacing some, set them next to the system, go do some other work. If you need to, check some cameras, reprogram anything, do that stuff first, come back, and then throw the drives in. And that'll definitely help cut down on any kind of condensation leaks from coming in. So that's, pretty much the handling things. There's some other things you can do to care. We, definitely don't be kicking boxes, throwing them around to each other. We see that sometimes with our distribution partners. So we try to teach our distribution partners the way to handle drives as well, so we know they've been handled correctly all the way down the supply chain until they get to your hands. So same things that we ask you guys to do, we try to do ourselves, just to keep these drives up and running. And then lastly, I just wanted to throw this up there. We got this award last week. It's not our first for Govies, but we got the 2020 Govies Platinum Award for surveillance video storage. So, they've recognized all the hard work we've put into these, all the new features we've been putting into these drives to really support this market. And, the government's, saying we're the ones that they trust and recommend. So definitely good, a good source to rely on if you're debating on which drives you want to throw in there. And that brings me to the end. So I try to keep it nice and short for you guys. Didn't want to give you death by PowerPoint, but just to kind of recap everything, it really makes a difference when you're talking about storage for surveillance. We see a lot of people trying to reutilize drives that they have laying around. It does work. It can be done, but if you do want the best performance that you can get, you want the best reliability for your system, for your customers, then definitely choose the drive that's made for that application. And for surveillance, that would be the SkyHawk. So yeah, I'd like to wrap up on that.
That's a great overview, Clayton. We appreciate that. And the challenge with hard drives, right, over the last 5-10 years is they've had to bear the burden of keeping up with higher and higher megapixel resolution cameras, right? There's more data, to your point earlier in the presentation, there's more data that's being imported into NVRs and DVRs and put onto hard drives. And the ability to handle that data properly, the large volumes of that, and to make sure the disk writes it properly. It's, like you said, the write function's the most important, but then it's also reliable for that 10% of the time where you're going back and trying to find the footage based on an event or a motion trigger happening. That's been the challenge that SEAGATE has been really tasked with over the last 5-10 years, is how do they build smarter hard drives? How do they build more capacity into their hard drives? And it's one of the reasons that our product management team has chosen them as our hard drive partner, because we're so impressed with the performance and reliability of the surveillance grade product as they've kind of stepped up to the plate to handle a lot of the technology that's been thrown at them. So.
Absolutely. And, we hear it all the time. I'm going to throw it out there. I was going to try to avoid saying it, but SSD, I mean, that's, one of the biggest driving factors for hard drives is even SSD. So, customers get the taste of the speed, the reliability, but then it all comes down to, capacity and price, and they can't get the capacity they need for the same price as a hard drive. So, we like to think as, SSD is definitely a component of storage. It's not going to be taking over hard drives. It's just not possible. They can't physically produce enough of it to take over. So our challenge has been, how do we make the traditional hard drive perform as close to a solid state drive as we can, and try to bridge that performance and price gap. So, working with guys like Alibi and all of our surveillance partners, we really understand, the inner workings of their systems, how they operate, and then we can build our products to support them as best as we can.
Yeah. And then it's funny you talking about solid state drives, and there were a couple questions in the Q&A that you just took care of. It's one of those things that you and I even talked about as we were talking about our computer performance, right? Whether we have a solid state drive or a spinning drive. And I'm sure as solid state technology advances, there's going to be no one that's more on top of it than the SEAGATE team. And if at some point in the future solid state makes more sense than traditional spinning drives with high capacity, they're going to make that move, right? They're looking at their customer base and understanding what's going to best solve problems, especially in the surveillance space. If that move makes sense, then they'll be on top of it. And I'm sure you'll see solid state drives down the road if it makes sense for the SEAGATE team. So great proactive answer to those couple of questions on the Q&A, Clayton. You nailed it out of the park right there.
Yeah, absolutely.
I do have a couple others that we'll
Okay.
run through here. One of them goes back to the image perfect piece of the software or firmware that resides on the disks. They're asking, does it max out at 4 streams, or is there another limit to the number of streams that image perfect handles?
Sure thing, absolutely. And I thought it was on the slide with the SkyHawk, and I'm sorry I didn't call a note to it, but I'll bring it up here. That the 4 streams, that was just completely for example.
Yeah.
When we look at the actual SkyHawk drives, I'm almost there. You'll see up to 64 cameras.
There
so
you
that
go.
64 streams is, what we base it off of. Now that's going to be dependent on your resolutions, on the megapixels of the cameras, things like that. But for the most part, for one single drive, we like to say we can support up to 64 cameras.
Right. And the image perfect software is on the regular hard drives and the AI version of the hard drives. There's an AI version of that firmware that's on the AI drives.
Correct. So when we look at the AI version of the firmware, it's basically identical. You can kind of think of it as your car motor. So our SkyHawk AI is like having a V8 under the hood. Our regular SkyHawk is like having a V8 under the hood. Our SkyHawk AI is like having a V10 under the hood. So you're getting more performance with the AI drives, so we can support those analytical streams as well as those 64 camera input streams. So we're expanding the performance on the AI drives to a greater scale than on the regular SkyHawk.
Cool. Then we had a question that relates more to installation of hard drives in an NVR. So, most of the times when we talk to our dealer partners, we're going to recommend, especially if they've got a more complex system, that they rack mount the NVRs. If for some reason they need to wall mount an NVR, like mount it so it's attached to the wall kind of vertically instead of horizontally, are there any performance issues within the hard drive that would say, hey, it's not going to perform, or that it's more suspect to failure if it's mounted one way versus another?
So that's definitely a very good question, and the answer is no. So the way we build these drives is, once they're turned on and running, it doesn't matter what angle they're sitting at. So it can be vertical, horizontal, at a 45-degree angle, whatever way you need to mount your NVR, the drive's going to work fine in it. The biggest detriment to the drives is going to be the vibration. So once it's mounted, you want to make sure it's secure and not taking those extra vibrations in. So if that's via a rack mount, via a better mounting system for a desktop class NVR, DVR, that's just going to be dependent on the environment. But as far as the way that the NVR is mounted vertically or horizontally, that's not going to make a difference on the drive performance.
Yeah, I think the other key thing is when you're looking at mounting the recorder, just you got to make sure that you've got the right ventilation around that unit. That's probably my biggest concern. When you talk about wall mounting an NVR versus rack mounting, a lot of those racks, right, they have built-in ventilation on the bottom. If you're mounting it directly against the wall, you're fundamentally closing off some of the circulation around that recorder, which then can ultimately affect not only the internal components, but the hard drive potentially. So just another one of those smart installation tips that you guys need to be aware of out there.
Oh, yeah. Yeah, especially with guys serving like fast food and, outdoor areas where it can heat up. We get a lot of guys doing like ATM, like external ATM machines, and the temperatures in those things can, vary immensely. So, yeah, I'd say that's probably the biggest, just like you said, the smart installation is key.
Yeah, and when you're looking at installing recorders with hard drives in more, what's the word I'm looking for? Like high temperature environments and more exposed environments, it's even more important to have that circulation thought through and built into that unit, because if it's naturally going to be in a high humidity or high temperature environment, that circulation and airflow becomes even more important to the unit. So
yep.
So when we look at the variety of hard drives you guys offer, we had a question about mixing and matching sizes of hard drives in a recorder and whether that's an okay practice.
So with our drives, it certainly is. We can mix and match. That's not a problem. I would say, look at the system you're using, what kind of controller. A lot of that can be a bigger factor in it than the drives themselves. Mm-hmm. With their standard, like a JBOD system, you're completely fine. You start looking at RAID 1, RAID 0 when you're trying to mirror or stripe it, that can definitely, make an impact, just because if the two drives aren't the same size, you're going to have one drive that's got more data than the other one that you're trying to mirror. So, but I mean, as far as putting, a 1, a 2, a 4 terabyte in a single system, no problem at all. You can, set up your volumes to say, I want all my recording going onto this, 1 terabyte drive, but then I want that 1 terabyte drive recording onto this 4 terabyte drive for my longer retention data that I want to keep longer. That's completely fine. No problems there.
All right. And then question about the recovery plan. Can it be purchased at a later date if an incident occurs?
So there is, we like to say, purchase it within 30 days of the purchase of the drive itself. We do run some specials every once in a while where you'll see online where it's, hey, cover any drive, no matter how old it is right now. Mm-hmm. It's just kind of dependent on our promotions we're running. But for the most part, if you're wanting to get it, we recommend getting it within 30 days of the drive purchase, just so you're protected and not scrambling later on trying to get the data somehow.
Yeah.
But for some reason, if you don't get the protection plan, our lab access is still available for you. So we do try to, charge, I wouldn't say a nominal fee like some of these guys do. I know data recovery can be very expensive. So since we own the technology, we own the labs themselves, this is hard drives, what we do 24/7. So we do have a little bit expertise in it. So we might be able to do it, service that a little bit cheaper than some of these third-party recovery companies.
Gotcha.
The
And
rescue.
last question we have here is, does the storage calculator allow you to estimate NVR storage with cameras that are different megapixel resolution? So if you're mixing and matching some 4 meg with 2 or 6 and 8.
So I will say that not easily. Let's see, we do have, you can choose your number of cameras, you can choose your resolutions. I'd say if you want to mix and match, it's going to be a little bit tougher. You might want to build out a system. Say I've got 6 cameras that are going to be running 4K, but I've got 15 cameras that are going to be running 720. Maybe do them separately and then add those combined storages together. I think that'll probably be the most accurate way to do it, with our calculator at least. There's some other calculators out there that might incorporate that a little bit better than we do.
Yeah, I think our calculator is very similar to yours, and it allows you to choose a megapixel resolution on the front end and then kind of a target bit rate as well. So
yeah,
very similar. All right. Well, we've kind of knocked out a lot of the Q&A. And, as I mentioned before, this is a great supplementary session to our recorder and storage conversation that we had last week. And, when you look at bidding, quoting, and installing solutions for your customers, making sure that you understand the performance that they're looking for, the resolution that they fundamentally want to write to those hard drives, what type of remote access, codecs, compression, that all goes into factoring in how much storage you ultimately need. And then, beyond just the pure storage space, and as you guys can see, the SEAGATE team with their SkyHawk drives, continue to increase the amount of space that they're allowing you to capture on each individual drive, right? So capturing the right amount is not going to be the hard part, right? You can figure that out with our storage calculators, but then more importantly, making sure you have the right features and functionalities on those drives that help you do your job better, being able to dive into health and understanding which drives are performing well, and if there's a preventative maintenance issue that you can tackle on a drive that's experiencing problems, the SkyHawk series allows you to do that. It gives you really good insights. And then when you move into the higher megapixel or the higher capacity drives, those AI drives give you even more features and functionality. So it can handle the advanced analytics and is just smarter about how it captures the data. So they give you a lot of robust features and functionality that makes you more secure in the storage solutions that you're providing to your customers. And one thing to note with this is we'll be posting this online onto our Alibi Security YouTube channel. We've got over 200 videos available for you guys to watch. It's a 24/7 resource for education and information. Like I said, we'll be putting this webinar up. I think we're like a day or so away from getting the last week's webinar up. So you should see those, right next to each other on the YouTube channel. So if you want to go back and watch the Recorder and Storage 101 and then dive into this, they're great companion pieces for how you design and install the right recorder and storage solutions for your needs. And as always, if there are any questions that didn't get answered, call your dedicated account manager. We're set up so we've got super experienced account managers available by phone. They're happy to answer any questions. They'll help you design the systems if you have questions. If you're just getting started in the video surveillance business, they can help you navigate what can be sometimes a confusing area, right? Ultimately our goal is to make sure you guys have all the tools and resources so you're selling in, more importantly, delivering the right solution for your customers. So they're super happy with the quality and quantity of video that you're helping them capture for their security needs. So we appreciate everybody joining us. More importantly, Clayton, we appreciate your time and sharing with us all the goodness that comes with SEAGATE drives, my man. It was informational, especially for me as the dumb marketing guy. There's a lot of stuff I don't get access to. So it was very, very informative for me as well. And we appreciate it.
Absolutely, anytime. And if you need help with any other questions, you need access to some of our technical teams, we're here 24/7 to support this industry. So anything we can do to help you guys, just give us a call.
All right. All right. Well, for all of our dealer partners out there, we'll look forward to seeing you guys on an upcoming webinar session. Always go out to the continuing education button at the footer of our website. Check out the latest sessions. We've got like 3 or 4 more queued up. We'll look forward to seeing you guys online. And again, Clayton, thanks so much. And everybody have a great 4th of July holiday weekend.
Thank you so much, Chris. Thank you, everybody, for attending.
All right. We'll see you guys online in the future.